Hi, everybody. I'm Holly Celiano, and I have my co-host, Dr. Matthew Singer. Welcome, Matt.
Holly, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to do this with you again.
Yes, we have a great topic today. The real epidemic in society is not feeling good enough. And that has become rampant. Everybody compares themselves to everybody and says, well, they're doing this and I'm not doing that, so I must not be good enough. Or we were raised in a family compared to everybody in the family and feeling you're not enough. And then you go through your whole life feeling you're not enough.
Yes. You know, when it comes to health, there's the biggest aspect of healing always, as you and I always talk about, is always going to be the emotional component.
Mhm.
And in my almost 20 years of doing what I'm doing, working with patients and other people clearing out emotions, it always stems from an underlying feeling as though they're not enough. And what's so interesting is God doesn't give us that. That's not a angelic, worldly, godly trait of we're not enough. So as you're saying it, we have to learn it from somewhere. So let's start with that. Where do you think people learn from the very beginning that they're not enough?
I would say absolutely the house you're raised in from your parents. And
Yes.
they get it from their parents and it gets passed on.
Yes. So like even let's go back. Like let's imagine we're in a time machine and I'm going back and I'm picking up my grandparents and then their my great grandparents. And now we're living in that time. So let's think about what would foster that emotion, that feeling, that false belief that they're not enough. That means they're living back in, let's say, the time of 1800s and think about their life. Everything is to them would be a struggle or a comparison or a judgment.
Mhm.
So they're taking on this burden, this guilt, this shame of I don't have as much land as this person, or my sheep aren't as fertile as my neighbors, or I don't trade as many beads with this person as, you know what I mean? So when it comes to humanities, even in the Bible, Cain and Abel, even in the origins,
Right.
it's a humanism. It's not an angelic. It's a humanism fear that, okay, if I'm not enough, what do you think the biggest fear is going to be? If the ego says, my biggest fear to you is that you're not enough, what is the ego's fear?
The ego's fear is then you're absolutely worthless. What's your existence about? Why are you
Right?
even here?
Yes. So I have no worth to live.
Right.
Yeah.
But even in today's society, going back to, our grandparents, yeah, they had things to compare to what other people had. But we today, with all our social media, everybody's posting, look at me, I'm here, I'm doing this, posting your food, posting where you're out socializing, you're out with friends. If you happen to be sitting home and you're not doing anything and you go on, Facebook or Instagram and you see all your friends out doing something, you're going to be like, oh, well, I'm not doing anything. I must be a loser.
Yes. Yes. And especially with social media, I have heard from countless amount of friends where their children got into horrible fights with their friends
Mhm.
because one girl buys a new pair of sunglasses and feels so good about herself. And then 4 hours later, her other friend goes out and buys the same pair and puts it on social media. And now they're mortal enemies.
Right. And it's so silly
Yes.
because it's not based on what you have or what you're doing or who you're hanging out with. The bottom line of all of this is when you don't care what anybody thinks about you, when
Mhm.
you're trying to prove yourself to everybody, look at me, when you don't care, when you're okay just being alone and being with yourself, that's when that not feeling enough goes away.
Yeah. So, and it seems like we could spend a lifetime trying to overcome that. Think about, I know growing up for me, the hardest thing for me would be to be alone with myself, or the
Oh,
hardest
yeah.
thing
Oh, my
would be
God.
if, right, if on the weekend there was
Oh,
nothing to do, and then I felt like a loser. There was nothing going
yes.
on. And it's amazing how I got myself from that to what you just said, not caring about what anybody thinks and being so happy and content with being by myself. If I'm by myself, the first thing I'm doing is I'm meditating. It's the
Right.
first thing I'm doing. I could spend my entire night going within and
Yeah.
discovering who I am. It's
And
amazing.
And I'm so okay being alone. Like, I love my alone time. A lot of people are like, oh my God, I must be a loser if I'm home alone on a weekend and not going out and doing something. But if you have a peace about it and you're not comparing yourself to what everybody's doing, you could care less what they're all doing. When you're
Yeah.
at peace with who you are, that's when you fully accept yourself.
Yes. Yes. So total self-acceptance,
Mhm.
like we've talked about this many times, total self-acceptance, one requires us to know who we are, right?
Correct.
That we are worthy, we are born worthy. We've always been worthy. You've always been more than enough. For all of our listeners, just know that you are born worthy and you are always amazing and divinely perfect. So, what's the second thing that we know? The second formula for knowing your self-worth?
Um, Okay, you're putting me on the spot. I don't know.
Self-love.
Yes. Okay. Ding, 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 ding.
Sorry. Well, so okay, so let's do it. Let me make it easier for you. So let's say um, one of your grandchildren comes up to you and says, "How do I know that I'm loved? My friends are making me feel like I'm not good enough, um, or that I'm not worthy." What do you say to them, your grandchildren?
I would just say, do you love yourself? I mean, if you love yourself, then it wouldn't matter to you what anybody says.
So let's say this is good. Let's role play. Let's say they said, "Well, love myself. No one ever told me I could love myself. I always thought that someone has to love me to feel loved." What do you say?
I would say the most important thing is to love yourself first and foremost, because then you wouldn't know how to love anybody or anything unless you love yourself first.
So they'd say to you, "Well, hold on a second. So you're telling me that there's a rule to the game that I was never taught, that it's actually love can actually come from me. I don't have to wait for someone else to love me."
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So now we just discovered something else, is that it's the false belief that love comes from outside of us.
Correct.
So that's a
I
second
think I've
false premise.
I think I have mentioned this before on some of our shows, but my mother is 95 and she doesn't love herself. And she told me about 2 years ago that I should not love myself because if I did, that's the most selfish thing anybody could do. Love myself. No, I need to love everybody else, but not
Mhm.
myself.
Amazing, right?
I can see the story of her life play out with how she is and all the things that my mom has been through is to prove to everybody how loving she is. If she had just stopped and said, I love me, I accept me, then this pattern of constantly proving herself to everybody of how loving she is would have ended.
Yes. Yes. Isn't that amazing?
It is. It's not selfish to love
Yes.
yourself, but that is the basis for feeling enough. I know for me, being raised by a mom like that, that got passed on to me that I'm not enough. I don't measure up. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not dressed well enough. I mean, it was just constant repetitiveness of being embedded in me that no matter what, it was never enough. And even when I thought I put myself together or dressed nice, my mother always had a complaint with me. And it's like, well, okay, so I'll try better and harder the next time because then maybe she'll accept me and say, you know what, Holly, you look great. No, it would be, well, you're missing your jewelry, or I don't like your hair, or I don't like your shoes.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yes,
there's just
yes,
always some criticism, but I realized doing all my inner work, it had nothing to do with me. It was a reflection of her because
yeah,
she judged herself so harshly for how she was put together
yeah,
that she passed that on to me.
absolutely. So now imagine if, so she has to learn that from her parents,
Absolutely.
and they had to learn that from their parents. So it gets back to the original thought, the original lesson, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of goes back, where they talk about Adam and Eve, and all of a sudden they had that sense of shame for their bodies, or shame for or being, naked, or thinking that they were unworthy of being loved. So it's almost like taught to us from the origin that you shouldn't love yourself,
Right.
or that it's shameful, or that you're not good enough, or do you know what I mean?
Well, that really is one of the greatest kept secrets that's been kept from us, which has created this from the beginning of time. All
Yes,
of this self judgment, not loving ourselves, and not feeling good enough. Stems
yes,
all the way back, and it's been embedded through society.
yes. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now this is where we really got a chance to help people change those brain pathways. So we can hit them with some really good stuff here. So the first thing is we're going to throw that at you, and we're going to shock you to no end, but you've always been enough, right? That's the first premise we'll tell our listeners. One is they've always been enough. Whether they like it or not, they always have been, they always will be more than enough.
Okay, I'm
What's
going
the
to
second
stop
thing?
you right there, though, before
Yeah.
we go on. If somebody deeply does not feel like they're enough,
Hmm.
how do you, and you just said you've always been enough, but I don't feel it. I don't feel enough.
Yeah.
I feel horrible about myself. I compare myself to everybody. I feel like a loser in life.
Yes.
What do you do? How
Good.
do
Watch
you
this.
tell
Ready?
somebody
So
you're enough and you inside they don't feel it?
great. So pretend that you're one of the listeners. I'd say to you, can you close your eyes for me? Good. Can you focus on your heart?
Yes.
Imagine we're getting into an elevator. We're going down 2 flights, and you open up, and it says heart. This is the floor of the heart. Because we came from the head, where the head said, I'm not enough. Now I'm in the heart. The heart is the seat of your soul.
Hmm.
It's the soul that only unconditionally loves you. So now ask your heart. Really ask her, not with your head, with your heart. Feel it. And ask your heart, ask her, is it true that I'm not enough? And what do you hear her say?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. Now get back in the elevator, go back to the head. Now ask the head, is it true that I'm not enough? What would she say?
No, that's not true.
Right. So now once you heard the heart say it, now the heart controls the mind. But if we hear our parents say, that nice dress, but where's your jewelry? Or your hair's not good, or this is never good enough for me, or you shouldn't love yourself. Now the head forms that belief that says, well, I can't love myself because my mom or my dad said I'm not worthy enough to love myself. But then we go into the heart is always the truth.
Hmm.
So, step one, if someone says, I really am incapable of loving myself, I'd say, great. So, ask your heart, is that true that you're incapable of loving yourself? And if someone says to me, yeah, my heart still says it's incapable for me to love myself, I'd say, great. So think of that now as a superhero talent. So now you have your superpower, like Superman may have the lasers out of his eyes and strength. Your power is you're unlovable. Doesn't that feel good?
Yeah.
That feels good to know that you're unlovable.
That I'm unlovable? No, I
Yeah.
am lovable.
So if someone tries to convince me, I say, great, now own it. How does it feel? It feels horrible. The reason why it feels horrible is because your soul is not agreeing with you, because it's not true. So the other thing I would tell that person is if you're telling me you're unlovable, then say it out loud. and tell me how that feels. It's not going to feel good, correct?
No.
Because anything we say that's a lie does not feel good because your heart won't agree with it. And your heart is your soul, and your soul's pure love. And you can't do anything about that. It's always been and always will be pure love. That's who you are. So if you're going to try and convince yourself that you're unlovable and it feels bad, it's because your heart says, I'm not going there with you. Because before I even took this body, I knew I was love. And I'm not going to let my brain, which is not going to come with me on my death experience, try to convince me that I'm unloved.
Right.
That's why it feels so bad. That's why people kill themselves. That's why people are addicted to drugs. That's why people run away from everything because they're listening to the mind and not the heart. And that's the lie.
Right.
Make
And
sense? That's how I would tell that person.
creates all of this angst and suffering in life
Yes,
is all from our mind because there's stories made up that aren't true.
absolutely. Absolutely. So if somebody would say to you and I that they're so convinced that they're unworthy, right? I'd say, great. What medal are you going to get now for holding on to that? And it feels so horrible to hold on to it. What Nobel Peace Prize are they going to award you for saying that I'm unlovable? Nothing. You're not going
No,
to get anything good from it.
no. It's almost like getting to this point is your soul crying out to say, stop the madness,
Yes.
stop
Yes.
this insanity,
Yes.
because you're hurting yourself
Correct.
and you're hurting your body. And because those are more emotions that you're storing in your body, which are not helpful, they're harmful. It's like
Absolutely.
drinking poison every day when you say, I'm not good enough. I don't love myself.
Yeah.
I don't measure up.
Correct.
Everybody's better than me.
Yes.
It's unbelievable what it
Yeah.
does to the body.
It really is. It's drinking the poison. That's
It is
exactly what it is. So now imagine we're drinking poison. What organs is it going to hurt, you think? The heart,
definitely the heart,
the stomach,
the stomach, the
liver.
intestines,
Hmm.
lungs.
Yeah.
Because you're not breathing life. You're not one with life.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're fighting against life.
Yes. So what do you think the most common ailments are that I see in my office from people who are stressed out every day of their life and thinking that they're unworthy? Starting out with the heart, what do you think it is? High blood
I,
pressure.
yeah, definitely high blood pressure. And
Yeah.
I would say everybody's got intestinal issues.
Absolutely. You got that right. Fatty liver,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
Also
probably arthritis.
arthritis, exactly. All that weight is bearing down on them.
Yes. It
Yep.
goes in all the organs. Like you're not moving. Like
Yes.
I see all the elderly where my mom is living, and they're all like hunched over. They all
Yeah.
have arthritis. They can barely move. And I just look at them and I can see the trapped emotions in them of a
Yes.
lifetime of trapped emotions because
Yes.
it makes the body like hunch over and constrict. Or
Yes.
arthritic hands become rigid because your
Yes.
thoughts become rigid thinking.
Correct. So true.
And
It,
all you've got to do is just, say, I need to stop the insanity of whatever I'm creating in my mind.
yeah. Yes.
It's an
That's exactly right.
illusion. It's not
Yep.
reality.
It's not reality. We are creating it. It's not reality.
Correct.
Yes. So,
So
which,
number two,
yeah.
what would what would be number two be?
For someone to convince them that they are the love. So the second one would be now we want to rechange the programming. So the second they have that thought, every time you have that thought, say to yourself, is it true?
Right,
So if every single time I say to myself, I'm not good enough, I have to say to myself, is it true?
right,
Then eventually I'm going to go from the head to the heart.
right. And another thing to start reprogramming, because it is a reprogramming of your mind. When
Yeah.
I was did this years ago, I wrote. pieces of paper, big print. I am enough. I plastered it everywhere. I had it on my doors, the refrigerator, in my car, in the mirror. Wherever I went, I saw, you are enough. I am enough. I am enough. And I'd even look in the mirror in the morning and just look straight into my eyes in the mirror and say, you are enough and I love you. Until it became where it was something I didn't have to do on a daily basis. It just became then who I am. I
Yes.
because I retrained my mind from my upbringing.
So, and you just, that's number three, I would say, is mirror work.
Yep.
Looking in the mirror. And I love to do that same thing. One of the most powerful things I've ever learned was what you just said, was looking in the mirror directly into your eyes.
Yes.
Not look at yourself, look
No.
into
In the
yourself
eyes.
and say, I love you.
Yes.
So powerful.
That is so powerful. Not even with just being not enough. For anything you want to reprogram your mind of, if you have any false thinking, just stare in the mirror and tell yourself what it is that you want to reprogram the mind of.
Yes. Yes. So true.
Yes, because the
Absolutely.
eyes are, you see into your soul through your eyes.
Yes. And that's always been the most profound thing I've ever seen is when I'm actually staring in the mirror and I'll do it like 2 inches away and
Yeah.
I'm staring into that mirror. All of a sudden, it's like this magic starts happening. And I have this overwhelming sense of love flow over me and through me. It is so intense. It's so powerful.
Yes.
It makes me welt up in tears. It's incredible.
And that's another thing to do is when you're staring in the mirror, if you can't love yourself and feel those loving thoughts, think of a time when you were so in love with somebody,
Hmm.
how that felt, and
Yes.
bring that emotion up and feel that.
Yes. Yep. The other thing I like to do is to bring the brain into total um, understanding that it's really is the love is if someone says to me, I'm just not lovable. I'm the problem. I'm unworthy of being loved. I'll say to them, great. How is that a benefit to you?
Right.
And none of them say, well, it's not. I say, well, it has to be. If you're allowing yourself to feel unloved right now, that means whatever's in our life right now is there for a purpose. So the fact that you're telling me you're unlovable means it's serving a purpose some way. So tell me right now, how does it serve a purpose for you to convince me that you're unworthy of being loved? I look them right in the eye and they go, exactly. So you're basically living a lie. And they're like, all right, yeah, you're right. So the next thing is just like we're talking about awareness. Bring that ego right to the surface. Call it out. I always call my ego out on me. Come on. You're telling me that I'm no good. I'm unworthy of being loved. And he'll say stuff like, well, no, no, it's not what I'm saying. It's like, well, why are you thinking it? Well, I don't know. It's a program.
And it becomes their story. Who are they
Yeah.
without that story? Because then everything else in life revolves around that story. And if you
Yes.
say that story's not true, well, then who am I? Who am
Yes.
I without that story?
Right. So I have no reason to live without that story, is what the ego says.
Yeah,
Right. So it
right,
holds on to it for dear life. This is my story, and I'm not letting it go. Well, I think we can let this go.
right. Here's
Yes.
another great thing that I like to do. So if let's just say you say I'm not enough, well, how's that make you feel? I
Hmm.
feel, you know, unworthy. Okay, how's that make you feel? I feel unlovable. Okay, how's that make you feel? And go through all the things that are wrapped in I'm not good enough.
Yes.
All of the different emotions until you get to one that's a positive emotion. Because eventually, when you unwrap all those negative emotions, you will hit something positive.
Yes. Absolutely. Getting down to the sponsoring thought, right?
Yes.
right? Bring it all the way down, funnel
Yes.
it down until you finally get to that core belief that you are
Yes.
love. You
Right.
are the love. Yes. Beautiful. So now let's put this all together for our listeners. So if someone says, well, I've had this thought process for the last 95 years, can I change?
Absolutely. It's
Mhm.
never too late to change. Doesn't matter
Beautiful.
how old you are.
And then someone said, well, how long do I have to work on this for? A minute?
A
An
minute.
hour? Right?
However, you are the master controller of your mind. You can make a split second thought change instantly. It doesn't have to be hard and long and take
Yeah.
years to unwind this unless you tell yourself it does.
The thing I loved about is what you said about the post-it notes. So if you make a mental image, make a mental post-it note, and every minute you're saying that I am unlimited, I am worthy, I am love, just like you did it with those post-its everywhere.
Hmm.
And we put it in the post-its of our heart,
Yes,
right? That's so powerful.
it is. And
Awesome.
you know what? If I can do it, if you can do it, anybody could do it because you and
Absolutely.
I both have had these thoughts.
Yes,
I mean, it's
absolutely.
not like we're sitting here from a perch saying, we're better than you, we're greater than you. We've
Correct.
never had these feelings.
Yeah.
No, we're saying we've both been there. We've both felt not good enough. We've both felt unworthy. We've both felt unlovable. And
Yeah.
you know what? We dove into those feelings and emotion and decided to change that story.
Yes.
We've done the inner work. So it's
Yeah.
not
Absolutely.
that we're any better than anybody. We've done the work.
Yes. Yes.
And it's just a
Absolutely.
matter of saying, you know what? It's really exhausting every day lugging around these worthless um, feelings and not feeling good enough. I want to feel good every day. I want
Yes.
to be alive. I want to be happy. I want to be joyful. I want to be loved. I want to
Yeah.
feel loved. And it's
Yes.
up to me to change that story.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give the listeners a nice little exercise. Do this in the morning, the moment your eyes open. Instead of getting out of bed and just going on autopilot and starting your day, close your eyes again and now talk to your inner being and say to him or her, today, no matter what I do, I'm enough. That's all I want you to do. Just say that. Today, no matter what I do, I'm enough. And that'll be like Holly's, think of it, I'm getting a Holly's yellow post-it note. Today, no matter what I do, I'm enough.
Yeah. Until you know you are enough.
Yes. And then once you know you are enough, make the second post-it note. Today, no matter what I do, I am unconditionally loved. And then you keep going. So you have your one post-it note mastered, then you make your second one and your third. You just never stop making those post-it notes.
Right. And then before you know it, you do feel worthy. You do feel enough.
Yes.
You do feel
Yes.
loved.
Correct. And you've completely changed.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not even the same person I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yes.
Completely different.
Exactly right. So true.
Yes.
Yep. Beautiful. I
Well, I think this is a wrap for today.
I agree. Thank you so much, Holly. It's such a pleasure
Thank
being with you.
you. And everybody, know you are enough. You are your own love.
I love it. Thank you so much, Holly.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.